Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1846, Interesting Findings. So, what interesting things have we found out today? So we are still plowing our way through this family tree and finding making DNA connections and everything else. I made another match today, which was very exciting. So, and my pile of paper has increased tenfold. I've been going through engagement notices. It's been very interesting. Yes, the only thing is that on this one that I made the DNA match for is I matched up everything else, and I'd done one of those through lines and printed off the through line, and then I went through and proved that the people were in the tree. With the exception of the third cousin once removed, who is between my fourth cousin So I got, let's see, my second great grand aunt. I already knew she was in the picture. Found the information for her son. Now, this was one of the tidbit things I found out. So her son married a woman. They had 3 kids. Then his wife, so this is the son, Albert. So Albert's wife died in 1918. I suspect from childbirth, since they had a child that was born in 1918, but I can't confirm that. Anyway, what also happened in 1918 is that his brother, who was married to another woman, to a different woman, of course. Okay, so Albert's married to his first wife, and she ends up passing away in 1918. I suspect from childbirth, since they had a child that was born in 1918. I don't know. I don't have a copy of the death certificate in New Zealand. They are not available online. You actually have to send in for them. So that was my thought, based on the fact that they had a child born in 1918 and she passed in 1918. Usually when you get that same thing, something's happened with the birth. So anyway, his wife passes away in 1918. What also happened in 1918 was that World War I was going on, and his brother, who was in France fighting at the time, died from injuries in 1918. Then an interesting things happened. In 1919, I see that he got married again to his sister-in-law, who was the wife of the brother that died the year before. Then they went on and had 3 kids. So he ended up with 6 children, first 3 by his first wife, the second 3 by his second wife, and his brother had only married this woman the year before. So it was almost like they got married and then he took off to go fight in the war, leaving her at home. So they hadn't had much of a marriage then, but yeah, so he ends up marrying a sister-in-law. Oh, that was an all interesting tidbit. So he was one of the ones I had to evaluate and confirm that, yes, that definitely was him. One of his sons from his first marriage is also in this chain link. Then his son, who I haven't found the name of yet. So this is my only query thing. So this is why I started going through like the newspaper articles and things. So there was a son that was born who is the father of my fourth cousin. Now, I don't know her father's name, because it's got private there, which means that he's either still alive or nobody has updated his records to say that he has passed. So here's my big question mark right now. But basically, I've confirmed everything else in the tree except for him. So I'm going to send her a note to say, hey, this is where I think you and I connect. Can I have the name of your dad so I can fill out my tree? Basically, that's what I'm going to do. Yes. What did I write on the end here? So how did that one? Oh, that was the wedding announcement. And whose is this wedding announcement? And this was the wedding announcement of my second great grandmother. No, my second great aunt. My second great grand aunt. who is the sister of my second great grandfather. I tell you, it gets confusing at times. But yes, this was their wedding announcement and where they got married and all that. So I had to go back and again. I know that place where they got married in the Cochrane's place. I know that. Why do I know that name? What do I know? Went back and had a look, and yep, sure enough, her sister had married a guy called Cochrane. So that was one interesting tidbit. Was the thing. Then as I'm going through, so I go to New Zealand has a really cool website that is called Papers Past. And it's held by the National Library, and they have all these different articles that have been scanned in from all the newspapers, starting from I don't know when through to like 1989, I think they go through till. And so I put in the years that I want, and I'm just looking for engagement notices, because I figured somewhere in there is this guy that is the son of is the father of this fourth cousin of mine. So I figured I'll just go through the thing because his dad was born in 1909, so it's very possible that his engagement notice could be in there, his birth notice could be in there. So I thought, let's start with engagement notices. I have to tell you, in this family, not this particular, well, actually, yes, this particular branch. So I just suddenly realized that, yeah, that is that branch. So the guy that got married twice, once had his wife and then married his sister-in-law, he also has a son who has appeared in the newspaper so far 3 times with 3 separate engagements, but he only got married to one of them. And he had 3 engagements in 3 years. What is wrong with this guy? And then when I went and researched, I found out that their fiancés had gone on and married somebody else at a later date. So he never got married to the first 2. He got married to the third one, never got married to the first 2. But it was all there and announced and everything else. And then I'd go and look and I go, well, he's not on the thing because New Zealand also has this database that's New Zealand BDM, birth, deaths, marriages. And you can go and you can look up, but it doesn't give you the details that are on there. It will give you like the name of the bride, the name of the groom, the year their marriage was registered. And then on the birth side, you will have, this is the given name of the child. This is who the mother is, just the mother's first names, not their last name. And this is who their father's name is, first names. And then you can go to the death ones to see when they passed and all that. And sometimes on the death one, they might put how old they were when they died. And sometimes, depending, I guess, on the difference, the time thing, they might actually put the birth date of that person rather than the age they were when they died, which is kind of really cool. It's it's one of those really cool tools. And so I went and I put in this last name that I'm researching right now, and put in, okay, I want all of the births that took place between these 2 years, and I make it quite a gap, and then I order it by father's name, so all the kids are linked with their dads, and then printed it off. And then I went in and did marriages with that last name for the bride, then marriages for that last name with the groom. So it was the same last name. This one I'm getting the females and I'm getting the males in that same family, finding out who they got married to. And then the deaths are all the deaths that took place between these couple of years and things. Because in some of the engagement announcements, it says late, of Mrs. whatever the last name is, and late Mr. Blop. And a lot of times they put in the engagement announcements, they're just putting the initials of the father. So it's Mr. and Mrs. And in this case, it was Mr. and Mrs. AJP, and then the last name. And I was going, AJP, what are they? So I then had to go back to the birth ones by father order and go down and go find the A's. Oh, that's this guy here. Okay. Found his gravesite and everything. So when I went to, they actually had a picture of his, and I know the cemetery pretty well. I haven't been there in a few years, but I know where the cemetery is. I've got a lot of relatives in the cemetery. And so I went to the website, and they put a photograph there of the grave. And it's a double grave. It's got concrete on the top, concrete little wall around it. And then it's got all these different headstones and whatnot on it. So I blew up the picture so I could read them. It's amazing what you can get on headstones. Now, if I also go back and I go and research at the cemetery with these cemeteries in New Zealand, if I go back and research, I can actually find the plot records. Now, what's really cool about the plot records in New Zealand at some of the cemeteries is it tells you who purchased the plot and when, every time the plot has been opened and why. So if it's a burial, if it's interring ashes, it tells you all of that. It will tell you who is in that grave that may not be listed on the headstone. It is amazing what you can find. And there's one of the graves in Karori Cemetery where I think it's my second great grandmother is in there. And one of her son-in-laws is also in the grave, and she never liked the son-in-law. She passed before the son-in-law did. And so the family made the decision when the son-in-law passed that they were putting him in the grave with his wife, with his mother-in-law who couldn't stand. But he was not listed on the tombstone. It wasn't until my mum and I pulled the plot records that we found out this guy. And my mum's sort of like, oh, and I go, what? And she goes, see this name here? She goes, yeah. She goes, that's his son. It was either son-in-law or grandson-in-law. I can't remember which. Might have been, I'm pretty sure it was son-in-law. Might have been grandson-in-law. But anyway, there was a guy in there that married into the family, that married either her daughter or her granddaughter. And my second great-grandmother did not like him at all. And he was not on the tombstone or the headstone or anything like that on the outside. We only found out that he was in there by looking at the plot records. So you can find all sorts of interesting things. And when we were up in Thames one time, we were looking for my great-grandparents. And I knew they'd been cremated and they hadn't been buried in that, but I wanted to see where they were. So we went down to the council offices and found out that this was the grave that they were in. They were actually, their ashes had been interred in their daughter's grave, and their daughter died when she was like 5 or 6. And so we went to the cemetery, and we're busy looking around the cemetery, trying to find my great aunt's grave. And this guy comes over, very nice guy, and it turns out he was the groundskeeper for the cemetery. And so he says, I've got a map of the cemetery in my house. And my house is right there. It was like literally across the road from the gate. So he goes over there, gets the plot plans, comes back. And by the time he comes back, we've found the grave. And he goes, oh, yeah, here it is. And we already had the plot records. So we knew that my great-grandparents, their ashes were buried in that plot with my great aunt. So and he comes over and he's pointing out different things on the thing. It was just a very interesting conversation to have with this guy. He went above and beyond, which was awesome. He didn't have to go and get the plot plans. He could have said, oh, which one are you looking for? Because I can't remember if the council gave us the plot number or not. Sometimes they'll give you the plot numbers and sometimes they don't. So you have to go on a hunt and a search and things. But yeah, if you can get the plot records for the cemetery for whoever's grave you're looking for, just in case there's somebody in there who is not mentioned on the headstone or the tombstone, because you never know what you could find in there. And then the same name, the same family that I'm currently researching at the moment to try and find this missing person. So I found another one of their relatives, and it was very interesting because he was a general. It was a general or a colonel. He was either a general or a colonel in some past life, at some point in his life. But now he is in the newspaper as Mr. And there's, we're going through the engagement dance. We are, Mr. and Mrs. Smith are happy to announce the engagement of their only daughter or their third daughter or their second daughter, their oldest daughter, whatever, and gives their name and where they're from to whoever the guy is, blah, 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 blah. This one was very different because it comes up with, so this guy was in the military, and I can't remember if he was a general or a colonel, and there's an engagement announcement for his daughter. And it says the marriage has been arranged between, and there was some military guy in South Africa that some officer in one of the military things in South Africa was going to be marrying his daughter. And it said that their marriage had been arranged. And this was in 1945. And I'm just sort of like, arranged? You're not announcing, you're actually arranging a marriage for your daughter. And I was sort of like, okay, we've come a long way since then. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that the wording was it had been arranged. It wasn't being announced. It was being arranged. So I thought that was very interesting. So there's been lots of interesting stuff that's come up. And I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. I'm just having a quick look here. Oh, that was one of the engagement announcements. Oh, this one here is a newspaper article that 8 married sisters, 7 of them grandmothers. This was in 1947. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. So it said 8 married sisters, 7 of them grandmothers, met in Lyall Bay, Wellington on Thursday at the home of Mrs. AJP, which is the husband's initials. And they had their last name, well known for her skill at croquet and her long association with the Wellington Choral Union. 4 of them were seeing each other for the first time in 41 years. And then it goes and lists the 7 women. And of course, it's all got the husband's initials and the last name. So I'm just sort of like, well, that's going to be interesting trying to figure out who's who. But if I go and have a look on the New Zealand BDM site, birth, deaths, marriages, then I can put in the maiden name because I know the maiden name. And I can put that in there. And it's not a very common maiden name, last name. So it's going to pull them up very, very easily. And then I can go over to them and get their births. And then I can go over to the marriage ones and find all their marriages. Okay, I read that as West Snort. It's actually West Snort. I've got no idea where that is, but it's got West Snort here. And I thought it said West Snort. Okay. And then they had 2 brothers that were unable to make it. So it's a very large family when you think there's 8 sisters plus 2 brothers. And I don't know if that's all of them or if there's other siblings as well. But when I pull up their birth records and then their marriage records to see which sister married which husband that's mentioned here, because it has, Mrs. FM Thomas, LJ Neighbors, A. Patterson, things like that. So those are the husband's names with the husband's initials, not the wife's initials. That's how it was done. This is in 1947. And it says, large though the family gathering seemed, it was complete only by the distaff of the distaff side 2 brothers being unable to make the journey from Dunedin. So this was Lyall Bay in Wellington, which is at the bottom of the North Island. It's our capital. And Dunedin is down south on the east coast of the South Island, down below Christchurch, way down below Christchurch. So some of them had travelled away. I've got no idea where West Snort is. I got to go look that one up. But one of them came over from Australia, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in Wellington area or close to Wellington. And Tikawiti, that's not that far away either. So I wonder which 4 have not seen each other in 41 years. That would be interesting. So, just finding out these little tidbits. And let's see, what's this one? Oh, yeah, that was the other guy. That was the other one that he got engaged to that didn't marry. That's that one. And I started doing like pedigree charts for some of these too to help me sort out things because it was very confusing. Trying to keep things straight in my head. So I have to put them onto the pedigree charts. Now the pedigree charts look like this. This one's stuff from the National Genealogy Society. It's their form. This is basically where you put your information. Then you've got your father, mother. Then you've got your 4 grandparents, and then you've got your 8 great-grandparents. And then over the far side over here, if you wanted to, you could then put that this person's now take this person and put them here and then continue the chart that way. But this is a 4-generation chart. So 1, 2, 3, 4 takes you to your second great-grandparents. Sorry, your first great-grandparents. Yeah, because you have 8 of those. Remember, every generation doubles. 1, 2, 4, 8. The next one's 16. Then you get 32. So there's a lot of people that, if you did I read that out one time. If you did the 12 generations, like for 12 generations, it tells you how many people had to come together for you to be here right now. And if you think every generation doubles, then you got to add them all together. That's a lot of people. I have to find that again because that was really cool. That yes, that's a lot of people. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I missed. Found somebody with the last name Peacock. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Those ones. Then I found separate engagement announcements for all the children in one family. So I've got them all clumped together. Just trying to see if there is. Oh, there's William Bernard. We had a couple celebrating their golden wedding anniversary in 1942. They got married December the 8th, 1892 in England. And they came to New Zealand in 1914. And it was on the, they said here, they came to New Zealand in 1914 on the first trip the Ruahine made after the outbreak of war and opened a stationery shop in Ponsonby. And they have one son, one grandson, and 2 great-grandchildren. So I'm sort of like, I got to go find out who their son is, because he would have been born in England, because it was 22 years between when they got married and when they came out to New Zealand. So by then they would have had a child then, and just see if the son came out with them, or did the son stay behind in England. So that's going to be that's definitely going to take some looking into. And then I found another connection back into that tree on my main tree, which was really cool, because I had a little micro tree going, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, they go right here. So I found a missing piece on my main tree. So that was kind of cool. That's that one. But yeah, so it's interesting when you're going through the stuff that you can find, the stories that come up. Oh, you're looking out the window. I was trying to figure out why she's whining so much. She's looking out the window. Yeah, she's sitting on the floor. This windowsill comes up to here, so she can just see out the window. So it's interesting when you're researching things, especially when you're going through newspapers, some of the articles that you will come across, some of the things that you will find. There was one woman who is part of this tree somewhere along the way, who broke her engagement off, and the fiance took her to court. Now, she agreed to give back the engagement ring. She was not going to give back the £300 that he had given her in, how did they word it? He had given it, it was almost as like a dowry or something for them to get married. And she refused to give back the £300 because she said it was a gift and it wasn't for their wedding. It wasn't put towards the wedding or anything like that. And he took her to court. He won. She had to pay back the $300, give back the engagement ring, and pay the court costs. So, yes, I'm just like, seriously. But he was able to prove that she got engaged to him with no intention of marrying him, just to get the money from him. And there was like about 30 different articles and a whole bunch of different newspapers and magazines on this one court case. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's that one again. There's that one again. There's that one again. So it's like scroll down the list, get past them, and just go to the ones that were in between. So you can find lots of interesting things in there. So anyway, that's it from us for today. I'm going to go WALK or DOG. Right behind me now. And we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. So let us know in the comments below what interesting stories have you come across when you're researching your family tree. And just so that we get to hear some of the stuff that you guys are. Why is that not? Okay. Just so you know. Oh, now this thing is doing, I don't know what. Yeah, let us know what interesting tidbits you come across. Some of them will make you laugh. Some of them will make you cry. Some of them you might get a little mad about. But also remember, too, that when you're reading an article that upsets you, look at the time period that this took in, and remember that in that time period, that was how things were done, or maybe that was acceptable during that time period. It may not be acceptable today, but back in that time period, it was perfectly normal for whatever to happen. So please keep that in mind when you are reading historical documents and things like that and getting upset, because it may be that in today's society, those things may not be acceptable, whereas back then they were. So please keep that in mind and keep that perspective when you're looking at things. Like this arranged marriage thing. I'm like, okay, we're in 2024 now, but this was back in 1945 when arranged marriages were very much still done at that point. And it could be that they were actually in love and had met and dated and all of that, and it was just the way it had been worded. So it could be that it was just a perfectly normal engagement. It's just the way it got worded was arranged instead of announced. So it may have been an arranged marriage, or it may not have been an arranged marriage. It was just the language that was used. So anyway, I'm out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m.